Las Vegas is growing as a sports city. Should the Big 12 make the move there now and add a school like UNLV? Also, other realignment candidates discussed in a piece from Dennis Dodd. We look at Boise State and San Diego State, as well as Fresno State, as potential candidates for the Big 12 conference, and also Colorado, their value as a media partner, and why, Dion might not be around for a long time, but he might be there for a good time.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Josh Neighbors, the host of the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is the 24th of April. It is a Monday. Year is 2023. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Big 12 a part of your day. Make sure you guys find us on Twitter at LOBig12. You guys can find me at @JoshNeighbors_. If you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're not watching us on YouTube right now, please subscribe, guys. We are now on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Our goal is 5,000 subs by the beginning of the 2023 college football season. And we need all of you all out there. If you're a watcher, if you guys have not subscribed yet, it's just simple. It's easy. Hit the subscribe button, like the videos, tell your friends, leave comments, and help this thing grow. It's more fun when the more of you all are involved, commenting, enjoying this. If you guys cannot watch the videos, find us wherever you get your podcast. You guys can find Locked On Big 12, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcast. All of those places are available. All right, let's do it here, folks. On today's show, we are tackling more conference realignment, and Dennis Dodd wrote an article over the weekend. Here's how this week's going to go. We're going to have some realignment stuff as news comes out. We're going to tackle this today. We're talking with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Pac-12 this week, as we've been doing every single week, just to check in to see how things are going. And I really think we're going to attack Colorado on that day because I think they're very interesting for a multitude of reasons, just in a general sense. Their future obviously is up in the air. Deion Sanders could be a coach in the Big 12. He could be a coach in the Pac-12. He could be he's going to be a Pac-12 coach. He could be a coach in both, eventually could move on. So a lot of interest in Colorado. We'll tackle that there. Still attempting to get Andrew Marchand on the show. He said he's busy last week, so we'll see if we can connect with him. He said there might be a piece of news this week, so we'll do our best to connect with Andrew Marchand. And also, we diverged from our tour of the coaches. We'll get back on track with that this week as well. So we'll talk about Dave Aranda and Matt Campbell are the two that we're going to target next. We'll do that later on this week. We'll also talk about Sonny Dykes and Chris Kleiman, the two coaches who were in the Big 12 championship game, who achieved the most last season in the league. So let's talk realignment here, folks. Working basically backwards in this article from Dennis Dodd, April 22nd. So this came out on Saturday. Deion Sanders' debut with Colorado will boost Pac-12, just not enough to help ongoing media rights talks. We'll bounce back to that later on in the show and once again later on in the week. But he did a realignment roulette update and really talked about his main candidate here was UNLV. Talked about UNLV, talked about Fresno State, talked about Boise State, talked about Memphis too. So San Diego State feels like they are the number one big chip out there right now when it comes to schools that are non-P5 schools at this point. Why? Because San Diego State just made obviously a championship game. They've got a new football stadium. They're good in they've been pretty decent in football as of late. They're in a major market. They're in California. They make it very appealing for the Pac and also for the Big 12 for a multitude of reasons I just mentioned there. All right. So we're there with San Diego State, right? And I think it is only a matter of time till they get added. I do not think they get a full share. I think that's pretty obvious at this point that none of these schools are going to get full shares. They would love to be, though, in these conferences considered Power 5. And look, guys, I know the word term Power 5, a lot of people say, well, it's Power 2, Power 2. As long as the college football playoff and the NCAA tournament, which the NCAA tournament is always going to acknowledge conference winners, but as long as the college football playoff plans on acknowledging the top six conference champions, being in a Power 5 league is going to be desirable. And being in a league like a Big 12, maybe even the Pac-12, I think the Big 12 for sure probably could have gotten two teams in last year. I think K-State and also K-State won, they would have been in. TCU would have been in, right? So Baylor and Oklahoma State the year before would have both been in. And then also you can make case, I guess Utah would have been in. And I think you could put USC in there as well last year. So there is hope there because it's more money, obviously, television contract, more opportunities to kind of grow your program. And so getting your foot in the door for these programs is really important for them. For the conferences, it feels like there's bigger fish to fry right now. For the Pac-12, it's staying together. For the Big 12, it's hunting Pac-12 schools because those are your bigger brands. They're more established. They're more ready to compete right now than, some of these G5 brands are. I think you're going to see that take place. I might be wrong, but I think on the whole, you're going to see a process across most sports, a process across recruiting, a process across facilities, a process across support staffs and coaching, where all of these schools do have to play a certain degree of catch up. That's not the case for a lot of these Power 5 schools. There is a certain amount of stability there. There are large donor bases. A lot of the donor bases for these schools, it's just a matter of getting these folks out, right? Deion Sanders is going to help your donations. Kenny Dillingham going to help your donations. If Jed Fish keeps going, they'll definitely help those donations. Tommy Lloyd, I'm sure, has helped things for the basketball side on that front. So you all, and Kyle Whittingham, I'm sure, is the same at Utah, right? So you're seeing what I mean with that. That's why there's a priorities. But if those are not the priorities, San Diego State makes sense as the number one because they feel like they are the most ready with location, with facilities. They play in a pretty big basketball arena. And then, kind of go to these next ones. Let's go with UNLV first. We got the announcement last week that the A's have purchased land to move to Las Vegas. Las Vegas has the Golden Knights hockey team, the Las Vegas Raiders NFL team. They're now going to be adding the A's NBA Major League Baseball team. It's only a matter of time, I think, before they get an NBA team. You're kind of wondering who's in the move right now. I mean, the Kings got saved. I think everybody's, I don't know for sure. I mean, Charlotte's up for sale, so Charlotte could move, but Carolina is such a big basketball state, but the Hornets are not number one, so maybe that could be a place where you see some movement. Not sure, but you guys kind of get the drift here, that they might need to expand to get that team. But still, Vegas is a very good sports city. I think there's no doubt about that. And obviously they've got the WNBA there. They've got XFL there. UNLV, though, as of late, has not been very good at the whole athletics thing, right? Their football and their basketball, the two prominent sports, just have not been very good. And they've now got a new coach, Barry Odom, former Missouri Tigers head coach, is going to be there. And actually, I don't even know. Let's see, UNLV basketball. I don't even know their head coaches for basketball. Kevin Kruger, who came from, I'm forgetting where he came from. But he's 39 years old. So that's pretty, good they have a young coach there. So they have got their work cut out for them. But the thing is, all of the infrastructure about where you want to be in a city and whatnot is there. Vegas does host a lot. And it hosts a bunch of the conference tournaments. I think that's obviously something of note. So it's a good kind of hub to go to and whatnot. Obviously, it's a desirable place to be in. It's not a college city. I mean, it's so weird. Now, there is a large residential population in Las Vegas, right? But they don't really, we don't really look like that they're in a spot where, it's like they're going to be surging up with the other teams about where they are in the sports landscape there. Like, they're not in a great position to it. Maybe if they have a good year, that'll be the case, but I'm not seeing that right now. Any indication that they will be. Maybe if they win, that'll be the case. So I think that's where the conversation lies. Are we talking about something that can legitimately become part of the sports fabric of the town? Does that feel like that's something missing? Could they be the USC in Los Angeles? I don't know. I don't really feel like that's what Vegas is. I could be wrong, but I feel like UNLV is not in position right now. And grabbing them just to have Vegas as a hub, I'm not sure if that makes a ton of sense for the Big 12. Maybe for the Pac-12, it makes more sense because they are already doing more in Vegas. If you say, well, the Big 12 wants to do stuff in Vegas, yeah, but is it worth just to be in Las Vegas? Like, they're doing events in New York City now. They do not have a team in New York City, right? They're doing the basketball thing in New York City. I think that they're going to, Big 12 Mexico, there's nothing in Mexico, but they might do something there. Right. So you can do things in places that you actually aren't to grow your brand. Is it important you have a home base there? I'm wondering if anybody feels that way. You all can put your thoughts in the comment section, but does the Big 12 really need Las Vegas as a city? Is it worthwhile investment? And look, I'll hear the other side of the argument. I just don't know if it's that big of a move. Like the whole thing about we love UCF being in Orlando, big city. We love it because they have a huge alumni base though, and also it's a fertile recruiting ground for football. Like that's what it makes. And then Ohio is a very fertile recruiting ground for football as well. So being in Cincinnati is going to help you like attract those kids. I know there are good players in Nevada, and there are a lot of good players in Las Vegas. But it's like those kids go to the prep schools, and I don't know if it's a super high concentration, right? And I don't know if it's a medium, and also like Vegas is not Houston, right? Houston is the fourth largest media market in the entire country because of the amount of population there. So I know Houston's not like this massive part of the sports culture there, but is a gigantic market. And also it's in Texas, which is your footprint too. So it makes a ton of sense. And then BYU is you beginning to push out west, and they have a huge brand because they are BYU. They are the team for the Mormon faith, and there are plenty of Mormons in this country. So, all of them represent something specific, right? Cincinnati's success recently, obviously, ability to get up there, being in Ohio, part of the country the Big 12 is in, but kind of, with West Virginia, Iowa State kind of keep heading in that direction, right? In Ohio, fertile recruiting ground, Florida, UCF, more in Texas with Houston, and then BYU, obviously, with a built-in fan base. I'm just not sure if Las Vegas is just enough when the programs themselves, football and basketball, are so down. Now, the one thing you could say is, hey, we're getting in on the ground floor of Las Vegas, maybe. And if some folks point that out, if some media advisors and whatnot point that out, then maybe I will agree with that. Maybe I'll start to see the light, but I just don't know if going to Vegas for the sake of going to Vegas makes a lot of sense for the Big 12 right now. We got some more schools though to talk about, but first, quick word from our sponsors. Today's Locked On Big 12 podcast is brought to you all by the FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook, guys, and there's a reason for that. It's because number one, they're killer with their advertising. Number two, their interface is so good. It is sleek. It is easy to use. It is clean. And guys, signing up is incredibly easy. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn today. When you guys do, you guys will get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first wager does not hit. So FanDuel.com/LockedOn. You guys can bet on the NBA playoffs that are happening right now, NFL draft props. I'm sure they will have up there. You guys can bet on college football props for next year as well. So there's a whole lot you guys can bet on there, whether it's currently or in the future. And I mean, they've got, like, if you go to the basketball tab, guys, they've got individual leagues in different countries. They've got Euro League. So whatever you all want to bet on, they've got. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more. The FanDuel Sportsbook. All right, let's move on here. So Fresno State is the next one folks are talking about. According to Dennis Dodd, all right, he says that somehow calls from Fresno State administration to the Big 12 have been misconstrued as interest from the Big 12 in Fresno State. At this point, there is no Big 12 interest in the Bulldogs, seemingly not even as a fallback option if other expansion falls through. Even with Yormark desiring a presence in the Pacific time zone, Fresno State doesn't move the needle at all with San Diego State and Pac-12 schools possibly in play. He also says, Dennis does, complicating matters more, try to imagine Stanford in the same Pac-12 with Fresno State. I believe that's because of academic things and whatnot. Once again, the Big 12, we are accepting of all academic institutions. Your education is what you make it, in my opinion. There are some that are better than others, but generally speaking, education, in my opinion, is what you make it. Besides the point. All right, folks. So yeah, the Fresno State thing, like I don't think their facilities are ready. I know they're trying to do that, trying to pass that tax thing to get more money for their facilities. They've got a big population there. Like, it's a big city and whatnot, but there's just nothing that says it's, if I want to take a G5 school from California, I want San Diego State. I don't want Fresno. I don't want Fresno just for the sake of getting into California. It's not worth it. You need to be strategic with this stuff. Don't just add to add, be strategic. And that's why I think it's really not that worth talking much more further about it. Boise State, once the best of the best in the G5, the Broncos have slid. Boise State is 98th television market, somewhat isolated in Idaho, and no longer the emerging power it was under Chris Peterson. The Big 12 has BYU in the Mountain Time Zone. Like Fresno, Boise might qualify as a Pac-12 backfill if the league loses teams. that would make more sense the Big 12 going out there. Nobody thinks the Big 12 needs to go to Boise State. The only reason folks out there are saying this, I know some of you all floated, I don't mean to insult your all's intelligence, not all of you, but I'm just saying the folks who have put this out there. Guys, what does Boise State bring? Boise is not a big television market. The Big 12 already has schools in this time zone. You're not missing players. I mean, sure, you're missing players, that part of the country. Boise State's prime was because of the development that particularly Chris Peterson did as the coach there. Brian Harsin did a decent job as well, but it's the development that Boise State was able to get. And also they had some like really, really good, I mean, really talented players. Doug Martin, obviously Kellen Moore was there. And then you get into guys, like Titus Young that they had. I mean, they were able to get some talent and get some, really good players there that helped them shine. But it felt like it was kind of a one-man operation that got that program football wise where it is. And to be honest, like the Boise State basketball in recent memory has been a little bit better when you look kind of a year to year, at least like year to year, what they've been doing. They've been really starting to improve much more. I know they haven't won a conference as of late, but they made the NCAA tournament. Let's see, when are the NCAA tournament appearances? Yes, they made it in 22 and in 23, actually, and also back in 15. So their basketball program is actually starting to come on a bit more than it was. Leon Rice has spent a lot of time there. Obviously done a very good job. But yeah, here it is. So since 2019, 20 and 12, 19 and 9, 27 and 8, 24 and 10, right? And even you go back to, his other years, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20 plus win seasons, 10, 20 plus win seasons for Leon Rice there. So that basketball program is coming on much more than the football program is, but the Big 12 does not need Boise State basketball. So it's kind of a moot point. This leads to Memphis, which is Memphis is probably the school that I hear the most about. That is, I think you all bring up Memphis the most out of any school that's not San Diego State. I've been talking about San Diego State a lot. So I think out of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, if we put aside those 5 schools and you ask about everybody else, Memphis is a school I hear about the most. This is what Dennis has to say. Through the years, the school's boosters have never stopped trying to move up. Memphis's name surfaced for the Big 12 in 2016 when the league was exploring expansion. The Tigers booster and FedEx CEO Fred Smith even promised a lucrative sponsorship for his company for the Big 12 football and basketball championship game. 2 years ago, the Big 12 spoke loudly when they expanded to Cincinnati, Houston from the American and not Memphis. So Memphis, and actually it's funny because I live 2 hours away from Memphis now. It's really interesting. And might be a totally side thing, but Arkansas, you don't hear people talking about Memphis basketball or Memphis football. The Grizzlies are kind of a thing here, and it's 2 hours away. When I lived in Richmond, I was 2 hours away from DC. And we talked about Washington, D.C. We talked about D.C. sports. People were connected there. And to be honest, Little Rock, Arkansas, to Memphis is kind of D.C.'s a bit bigger, but Little Rock to Memphis is kind of like a comp, from D.C., from Richmond to D.C. And there is not as much love for, Memphis Grizzlies or the Memphis Tigers as there is in the state. Now, I know, it's different. Hey, they've got Arkansas and Arkansas. Memphis basketball is it's in their college. So why they like it? Yeah, sure. But Penny Hardaway and kind of the guys have been getting, it's a lot of excitement there. They play at the FedEx Forum, obviously. I'm not sure they're an on-campus place, but I know they play a lot of their games at the Forum. And then, football, good God, the Liberty Bowl sucks. What a dump that stadium is. I know they play a bowl game every single year there, but that is not a nice stadium. And look, I think they might be renovating it. I'm not sure. Right. But they are not in a facility spot where it makes sense. And recruiting wise, if you give Memphis the ability to also go into Texas and Florida and Ohio and all of these places, I am sure they would get a lot of talent and actually maybe do very, very well. But there is not enough mainstream appeal, it feels like, for them to make that move to Memphis. This is one of those where, look, I will circle back to Memphis and I will definitely consider them if we have a situation where, the Big 12 strikes out on Pac-12 schools. If that's the case, then maybe. But I think it could be interesting. Like Memphis, if you go beyond San Diego State, Memphis is the one that I definitely have the most interest in. Once again, guys, though, like the number one target should be the Pac-12 schools. But Memphis, yeah, I mean, with the FedEx sponsorship and whatnot. Also, Memphis would not be a terrible place to have a Big 12 basketball tournament. I know they like doing it in Kansas City. I know it's kind of their big spot. And I'm not sure how long their agreement is to do it there. But I think you're going to see them start to move that thing around. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Brett Yormark wants to take that thing to Madison Square Garden. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I know that they have other things going on, but like, I think Brett Yormark has big plans for that tournament and is like, come check out the best college basketball tournament in the country, the best teams somewhere, maybe not even Big 12 is located. But, I think Memphis will be interesting. I don't think they'll go to Orlando. I think Houston might get it, right? I think they might, there's a chance that Houston could host something like that, right? Salt Lake City would be interesting. I'm not sure they're going to go to Salt Lake City, but they might think about doing that. So I think there's some interesting options out there for that, but like Memphis geographically fits in the footprint. It doesn't feel redundant because you're going to Tennessee. It's still a major market. It's kind of like Houston and Cincinnati in that respect, right? That it is it's a college named after a city, right? So you're getting kind of that vibe with it too. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing to explore, right? Financially, to figure out, okay, how much can FedEx be worth the conference? Are we losing any money on this? Do we feel like their facilities are good enough, and can their facilities improve? Is it worth doing? And hell, actually, part of the deal might have been that the Big 12 basketball tournament had to go to Memphis, which I'm not sure is the worst thing in the world. So I think that one is one you put a pin in, and if things don't go well with the Pac-12 schools, you go for them next. But I would say if things don't go well with the Pac-12 schools, like Memphis and San Diego State are probably my first two calls. That's probably where I'm going. Memphis in the footprint already kind of gives you just some more ground there. And then also, you start thinking about, okay, now we're starting, and basketball wise too, as long as Penny's there, it's going to be super interesting. So I branding wise, I think the Big 12 helps strengthen Memphis's basketball brand. Actually, I definitely think this. The Big 12 would help strengthen Memphis's basketball brand more than the other way around. Right. I know Memphis is well known, but Calipari has been long gone and they're trying to bring that thing back to prominence. Trying to do so in the American is not obviously an easy thing to do. I think the program would even improve there in the Big 12. And I think that would be good for them. Level of competition goes up, all those things. So I think that's an interesting kind of thought process there and something that we should watch. So, all right, there you go. That is what's been talked about from Dennis Dodd, those candidate options. Once again, all eyes are on the Pac-12 schools. We'll have more on that as things do come out. But San Diego State's the main target for the Pac and the Big 12. I think San Diego State is probably waiting to hear what happens to the Pac-12 before they make a move, right? The Big 12, they might not need all four of the four corner schools at the moment. If you can pull off a move where, hey, what if you add San Diego State and Arizona together, right? San Diego State, Colorado, in Arizona. Once again, I like the round numbers, the even numbers. I should say the even numbers more. So we'll see. But I think that's, it's once again, it's a waiting game, but starting to evaluate these other schools is probably good. Once again, it feels like the odds on favorite is the Pac-12 adding or being able to get a deal done, but that's not for sure. Nothing feels for sure right now on that front. All right. That will be it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. You guys can find me at JoshNeighbors_. Please subscribe, like the video, leave a comment as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.